Welcome everybody to Leadership from the Heart's How to Have an Effective Meeting presentation. Meetings are always important, but they need to be effective. You know, most of us professionals are just tired of endless meetings because they often feel so unproductive. They take up too much time and they interrupt our ability to get real work done. People want to just focus on the task that matters and not sit through unnecessary discussions. What I find the most irritating about meetings is that they have little to no result and there's no follow-up after the meeting or accountability for the deliverables. And so that exudes a lack of trust, right? We go to a meeting, we sit there, we talk about things that should happen, and then we leave, and then there's no follow-up email saying what we talked about. There's no accountability for who should deliver what. And so now you've lost trust within your team, or you've lost trust within the department that you're having that meeting with, and now nobody wants to attend the next meeting because why should they? Nothing came out of the first meeting. Meetings are often ineffective because they lack preparation. And so what you'll find here is how much it takes to have an effective meeting, and hopefully that deters people from just calling one-off meetings just because they feel like it. It's just far too easy to call or ask for a meeting without having the bones defined and waste everybody's time. We often confuse being busy with being productive. And so here in this space, even if you take one or two tips from here, that will essentially, for sure, let you have a more effective meeting. Whether you take everything and implement it right away, or you take 1 to 2 things, all of that is good. So a little bit about our company, Leadership from the Heart. Our goal is to empower leaders to lead with empathy, integrity, and purpose. We focus on developing authentic leaders through emotional intelligence and meaningful connections. Our goal is to help you become the leader that you were always destined to be. We're a young company. We probably have about 45 years of experience altogether. Our goal, again, is to empower leaders, unlock their full potential, and help them become the leader that they were meant to be. A little bit about our team. That's me up top, Romy, the founder and leader. That's Melissa on the left. She's one of our transformational coaches. And that's Cindy Martin on the right, who's the director of admin and staffing. I myself have 20 years in operations, 15 as an operational leader. I saw a gap in the market and decided to expand myself and create a business where leaders have a community to grow with. Melissa is a professional coach with over a decade of experience in education and training. As an instructional coach and staff developer, she consistently leads with empathy and advocates for marginalized groups, creating safe spaces for professionals to thrive. Cindy, our director of admin, has about 15 years of customer service experience. What we did is we leveraged that to have her onboard our staff, onboard our customers, and she also has an educational background, and so we leveraged all of that to help us make a solid foundation for our company. Let's jump right into the agenda. The first step of planning any meeting is to, 1, assess if a meeting actually needs to be taken place, if the meeting is necessary. And you can do this by asking yourself if the purpose of the meeting could be solved by one of 2 things, right? Could this be solved by me picking up the phone and calling someone, or calling 2 people? And if it can, then you should pick up the phone and you should solve that by calling. 2, could this meeting purpose be fulfilled by sending an email? We've all heard, I just attended a meeting that should have been an email. So that's a really big thing, right? A lot of the meetings we attend could have probably just been information sharing. The problem is people don't like to read lengthy emails anymore, and so you have to kind of find a way to bullet point it and write a concise email. There's a whole email etiquette course that I designed inside Leadership from the Heart's LMS program, which you can go and take that. That helps convey the message that you're trying to send or have people receive. And so if these answers to these 2 questions are no, now we can proceed to create a meeting. But if one of those can be solved by picking up the phone or sending the email, that's what you should do. Right? Nobody wants to attend a meeting that could have been an email, especially if one could have been a phone call. We've gotten away from this personal touch, and so now we don't want to call, but I still find that very effective. Our agenda for the meeting, because the second part of this is once you find out that you do have to make a meeting, you'll see further down the line an agenda needs to be created, because a meeting without an agenda is just a get together. And so our agenda is we're going to first talk about the purpose of a meeting, then we're going to jump into the objectives and process. Third, we're going to show you how to prepare for a meeting. Fourth, we're going to talk about meeting mechanics. 5, I'm going to show you guys a sample agenda, and that sample agenda will also be available for you to download. And then 6, we're going to review and close. Something that I'm going to mention in a little bit as well throughout the presentation, but I'll mention it now anyway, is an agenda's purpose is to tell people what you're going to tell them, and then you dive into the presentation and tell them the thing, and then the review and the close, you're going to tell them what you told them. And so those are kind of the 3 things that an agenda serves as. So our meeting purpose. Before calling a meeting, you as the owner or the facilitator should know what the purpose is. Below are the most common purposes for meetings. The purpose explains why the meeting is happening. For an example, alignment and communication. This is more like information sharing, and the objective is to ensure that everybody is aligned on the objectives, the progress and the responsibilities. Also, it's to share important updates, announcements, and or organizational changes. The second one we have here of decision making. This is when an outcome of the meeting is to have a decision made on a critical business or operational decision. It can be to review options and finalize choices among the team members. In a group problem solving is an issue, the decision making can be addressed and resolved by looking at the challenges and the roadblocks. And here you'll probably do a little bit of brainstorming, but this is not the intent for the meeting. The intent for the meeting in a decision-making meeting is to come out with the decision being made. We'll get into meeting mechanics later, which is the how it will get made. Third is planning and strategy, where our outcome is more likely to create an update for a project plan, a roadmap, strategic decision, to align along long-term goals and set actionable steps. These types of meeting would be followed by, project or progress updates. So here you have planning and strategy. Next, once you plan and strategize how, then you would probably have project or progress updates. This is to check in on the progress of the ongoing project and or task, and to review the milestones, the deadlines, and the deliverables. And then fourth and final that we are going to show you here, I'll have some honorable mentions here shortly, is idea generating. This is a collaborative and brainstorming effort. The purpose of this meeting is to generate new ideas, share insights, and explore creative solutions. The team here the purpose of this meeting is to have the team collaborate on what we would consider complex issues, because if it's not complex, it could have probably been solved by sharing an email or picking up the phone. Some honorable mentions of meetings that have purpose are some training and development, performance reviews and feedback, onboarding and offboarding, innovation and change management, and of course budgeting and financial decisions. So those have very specific reasons for meetings. In your PDF of meeting mechanics, we do highlight those and teach you guys what the purpose and how to gain the most out of those meetings as well. But for this presentation, I just wanted to highlight the 4 most likely reasons to have a meeting. So alignment and communication, decision making, planning and strategy, and idea generating. So let's jump into meeting objectives. A meeting objective is what the goal of the meeting, or what outcome do you want. Now that you know the purpose of your meeting and the desired outcome, the objectives are next. The objective defines what you want to accomplish during the meeting. And then the purpose that we'll get into is something that I believe most people miss, is the how the objective will be achieved. This is when you'd formulate a plan B or a plan C to keep the meeting moving in the right direction. So meeting objectives, the meeting objective is a specific goal or outcome you want to achieve by the end of the meeting. That is, so what we talked about in the idea generating is you want ideas to be generated. Now, how will those ideas be generated? This is the process. This is the outcome process, right? How will the final decision be made in a decision-making meeting? How will we get those ideas when brainstorming? What are the topics that will be covered during planning and strategy? These are the small misses that people kind of overlook or don't even know about. And this is the key to having an effective meeting, right? So in a decision-making meeting, will the final decision be made by the leader, or will majority win? These are things that you want to know before you go in, because when you do have a hiccup, or when you do hit a roadblock, you want to be able to know how to navigate through that very smoothly and keep the meeting going. You also can ultimately let everybody know in the agenda how the final decision will be made. Or you can start with brainstorming ideas that will be used and the way you want to brainstorm. Is it going to be silent brainstorm? Is it going to be popcorn? You can let people know that prior to the meeting. That's always, as much information as you can give prior to the meeting will help you have a more efficient, effective meeting. So now that you have your purpose, you have your meeting objectives, and you have your outcome process, we're going to now begin to create our agenda. And so you have your purpose, you have your objectives, you have your process. We begin the agenda. A meeting without an agenda, as I said before, is just to get together. So when preparing your agenda, you'll want to gather as much information as possible. This is the real bones of a meeting. This is where all the work comes in, right? First, you want the meeting information, the name of the meeting, the title of the meeting, the purpose of the meeting, the date, the time, when and where it will take place, the location or the platform, the duration, how long will the meeting last, and quick note, if you know your meeting's going to last 3 hours, request for 3 hours. Do not request an hour-long meeting and then take 3 hours. Time is the most, if not one of the most precious things we have on this earth, and so don't take more time from people than they expected. It's better to give time back than it is to have a meeting run longer and not honor or respect other people's time. So if you think it's going to take 3 hours, just put the meeting for 3 hours. If it only takes 2, you gave people back an hour of their time. So this section of the meeting information, this provides all the logistical details to ensure participants know when and where to meet. Second, we're going to get into the participant selection. This is also critical. This is where you're going to identify who should be present based on their roles or the involvement in the meeting's purpose. The meeting's purpose we talked about in the first real slide. Here you're going to really hone in on who actually needs to be in the meeting, who can add value to the meeting. If there's somebody, unless your leader wants to be invited to all the meetings, this is not something I would advise you to do. It's much easier to call people in later on, but let's make sure that whoever's invited to the meeting can add value to the meeting. Then you want to look at key roles, and you'll assign specific roles. As a facilitator, you'll get a note taker, you'll get a presenter if there's multiple presenters, you'll have a timekeeper, but we'll get into that a little bit later in the meeting mechanics. This part of planning ensures that the right people are included for effective participation. The more people you have in the meeting that don't necessarily add value to the purpose of the meeting will just deter the meeting and make it a little ineffective, and you'll start going down rabbit holes because they don't know enough to add value, and so they'll ask questions that everybody else may know and are irrelevant to the meeting's purpose. Third, you're going to clearly define the purpose of the meeting, because this has to be put into the agenda. So here's where the objective and the why will be outlined. This section helps everybody understand the reason for the meeting and what needs to be achieved. Fourth, you're going to list the agenda items. These are the topics of discussion. So a topic list, break down all the key topics or issues that need to be addressed. You'll allocate time for each specific topic. And then if there are many presenters or different presenters, you'll identify who will lead or contribute to each topic. There could be one or more presenters. but you'll want to highlight that in the agenda. This is the core of the agenda. This is detailing the subjects that will be covered so everybody can pre-prepare for the meeting. Again, the more preparation we have, the better the outcome. Fifth, you're going to outline the desired outcomes, right? This is the goals. This is where you list the expected outcome of the meeting. Decisions will be made, action plans will be drawn out. This ensures that by the end of the meeting, specific results have been achieved and that everybody knows what we're going in for, so everybody can expect to participate for the purpose of having a desired outcome or the desired outcome. And then finally, we'll close the meeting, and so the action steps will be reviewed. This is where you'll highlight some time, you'll allocate some time for review and wrap up, and you'll summarize key points and decisions. The action items should be assigned and response with. So action items should be assigned. Assign the task and responsibility with deadline. This is where your note taker is going to come in clutch, as that person would have written down what decisions have been made during the meeting and who made them. Also, who volunteered to take X task from Y. Once you've developed your plan and your agenda, you'll want to dive into meeting mechanics. This is a deeper dive into your objectives of your meeting and how you'll prepare for it. So here's a breakdown of what to prepare for the different type of meeting, right? So information sharing meeting, the purpose is to update to inform participants of new development, reports, or announcements, right? So to prepare, your agenda could include key topics. It could have a presentation like a PowerPoint, or it could have PDFs of updates. So you'll want to have reports or data presentations to share. Your presenter would want to assign individuals responsibility for delivering these updates, and then you would want to have time allocated for Q&A. Because you're sharing information, people will likely have questions, and so at the end of this presentation you would definitely want to include some Q&A, and then prepare to distribute any material or summaries after the meeting as your follow-up. And so meeting mechanics are the purpose, the agenda, the materials you need to have ready before, who will be presenting, Q&A time, and follow-up. Not every meeting mechanic is like this, but this is the purpose of information sharing. Diving into decision-making and problem-solving meeting. The purpose is to discuss options and make decisions or solve a specific problem. For preparation, you would want to create an agenda that clearly outlined the decision or the problem that needs to be addressed. You'd want to give background information, so you would want to provide any relevant data, reporting, or case studies that'll help in making informed decisions. You would want to, if possible, provide any possible solutions. So like prepare a list of potential solutions for the discussion. You can also provide like criteria for the decision, define the factors or the criteria that will help guide the decision making, budget, restraints, resources, those types of things. As a facilitator, you may want to assign a guide in the discussion to keep it focused and reaching a conclusion, and to make sure that we don't leave the meeting later than we planned, and we also leave with a decision having been made. And so these are the types of mechanics, and there's a PDF for you guys that go into every single type of meeting. The 4 that we mentioned, and then the other 6 honorable mentions are all in your meeting mechanic PDF, because I think that this is kind of the guiding tool to help you have a very effective meeting. If you can plan accordingly, then you can help prepare the meeting to be the most effective meeting that you can possibly have. And again, that goes into providing as much pre-work information as possible. So meeting mechanics continued. So planning each phase ensures that the meeting is fully prepared. It helps meetings be productive, and it leads to the desired outcome. planning each agenda item, and then follow up to confirm that the tasks are completed. Some of these things you're going to see in your meeting mechanics is the meeting role. That's super important, right? So this is the meeting owner. As the facilitator, this is the person that guides the meeting and ensures everybody has a chance to speak. Excuse me, and that the discussion is focused. That facilitator, and you'll see in the next agenda, assigns a note taker and a timekeeper. Note taker, timekeeper, those aren't desired roles. And so what I recommend is that we share it, right? We don't necessarily make the same person do it unless that's their role as like an admin or an executive assistant. Give it to different people so that they can all hone in on being better note takers and timekeepers, and so everybody gets a chance to do better or share the undesired role. Meeting norms are things like, are we all going to have our video on? Are we going to have our video off? What kind of background or lighting do we need to have? Can we blur it? Can we not? Meeting norms are length, the time between meetings, the time it takes to have the meeting, and then of course sharing. How much time do we allow for sharing our personal life, our personal life overlap? And so those are some meetings that I mean, we've all been there, right? The first 5 to 15 minutes of the meeting, we're talking about our favorite sports team and how they won or lost, or rivalries. And so you want to build that into the meeting so that it becomes a meeting norm if that's something that you value. And so it doesn't necessarily deter the meeting, or people know that they can miss the first 5 minutes of a meeting because we're just going to talk about sports and I'm not really into sports. Or it gives me time, maybe not to be late, but when I get there to just continue answering emails and text messages until the sports talk is done. These are just some meeting norms that you can establish. And of course, meeting tools are equally as important. This is where you would have like an action log where you would establish this public accountability for each person to deliver on their agreements. I can't tell you enough how much, we talked about this in the first slide, people hate going to meetings because the person or the people who committed to delivering do not deliver, and there's no accountability for it. So this is a public log of what people agreed to do. Then you have the decision log. This is primarily coming from your note taker, and this is to consistently record the decisions that were made and the people that made those decisions. Let me mention that in your follow-up from your action log and your decision log, it's the facilitator's role, the meeting owner's role, to send out the follow-up. Unless you assign that to somebody else, it is your role as the owner of the meeting to send the action log and the follow-up. And then of course, whether that person reports to you or not, that may not be your role to make sure that they deliver on their promises. But as you become a more cohesive team and honor each other's time, I find that it's much easier to have that peer-to-peer interaction and get people to deliver on their agreements. And then finally, the last tool that I love to highlight is the parking lot. This is where you capture any and all worthwhile off-topic discussion points that you want to follow up with later. For example, we're having a conversation about the refrigerator, right? And we're talking about the refrigerator and the ice maker under in the freezer, and somebody mentions a component of the washing machine that is sort of relevant, but not one of our outcomes, right? It's not one of the desired outcomes that we want for this meeting. And so we want to put that in a parking lot. We want to create that in a note somewhere so that we know to follow up, especially if it's information that's coming at us, because all feedback is a gift, and it's something that we could look at later on to prevent something from breaking down or have some preventative maintenance surrounding that. So that's the parking lot. Anything that's worthwhile but off topic or off discussion that we want to look at later. Highly recommend the parking lot. It makes people feel heard. And then the most important part is, of course, to follow up after. Here's our sample agenda. And what you'll see in this sample agenda is, of course, all the highlighted points that we hit earlier. So time, date, location, meeting title, start time, end time, team name if you have a team name. So if it's your team and you're specific, then yeah, you can use that. The facilitator's name, the team members who have been requested to attend. And so you'll see Matthew, Sarah, Nancy, Lewis. But then I started to say, like, what if it's a whole team? So project team A, it could be that very easily, or a whole department team. Me coming from operations, it would be day warehouse or delivery driver or IC, and so you don't necessarily have a bunch of space there. You only have 8 slots. So if you can get concise and kind of group that together, that would be huge. Then you see our first part of the agenda is the purpose of the meeting and the objective. This is where you would give a brief description of what the meeting is for and the purpose of the objective. To be presented by is where you would put your presenter. You would have the start time and the duration of that segment. So here I am talking about the purpose of the meeting and the objective. My meeting's going to start at 10:30, and I should take 5 minutes to tell you guys all about that. Then we're going to take the next 5 minutes to assign a note taker and a timekeeper, and then we'll define the roles when we do that. Then we'll jump right into reviewing prior action items. If applicable, if this is the first meeting, then obviously you may not have any prior action items, so you could skip right over that and delete that line. And then you would jump into your actual meeting agenda. You would have your agenda items, your action items, and then if you had any terms or descriptions, then that's where you would list that out. If you don't, then don't feel like your agenda does not have to look like this agenda. Your agenda has to look like whatever your agenda looks like. As we mentioned before, we would always want to review our new action items for this from this present meeting that we're having. We would want to sit back and propose the agenda for the next meeting, get ahead of it. Also, at that time, I find it very easy for everyone to kind of jump into their calendar and see when they're available next. And then you would evaluate the current meeting, meaning you would ask for feedback of what could be better, what could be done better, what should we, and this is something, what should we start, stop, or continue. Those are really easy ways for people to think through what they would like to see again, what they would like to never see again, and what they would like to see going forward. So very simple review. Once you find that you list your purpose for the meeting, you'll want to be concise. You can use as many lines as you want, but you'll want to be concise because you don't want to lose people in the agenda. I love this agenda because it covers just about everything you need, including the time again to review. And even when you're having a last minute meeting, because life is not perfect and not everything goes as planned, but even when you're having a last minute meeting, the basic meeting guidelines need to be followed, even if it's being done quickly. It means you can print out a blank template and start to do this on the fly, but it still needs to be done to make it effective. That's the goal. Every meeting should be effective. So in reviewing and closing, all meetings begin with a purpose, then an objective, and then your agenda. Your agenda is short. It's going to tell them what you're going to tell them. Then you tell them, and then in closing, you tell them what you told them. So here we are. So our clear objectives are specific goals or outcomes for the meeting so everyone knows what they're looking forward to. Following that is our agenda, where we create and share a structured agenda in advance, outlining the topics, the timeframes, and the participants responsible for each part. Next, we're going to look at time management, what start and end on time. We're going to stick to the allotted time for each agenda item, and we're going to avoid running over. Next, we're going to focus on the participants that need to be there. We're going to encourage participation from everyone that's there, but we're not going to invite people to the meeting who cannot add value to the discussion. And this way we avoid distractions or any side conversations. Next, we have roles. High-level roles are the facilitator. The facilitator is who guides the meeting and ensures everybody has a chance to speak and keeps the discussion focused. Our note taker records any key points, decisions, and action items. Engagement. We're going to ensure that everybody involved is prepared and understands the purpose and is actively engaged in the conversation. It doesn't make much sense to invite people to a meeting who don't want to speak, but that as a facilitator is your role in ensuring everybody has a voice. And so sometimes we use silent brainstorming so that everybody does have a voice, and once they are able to kind of get out of the, I don't want to call it introvert, but the cold part of the meeting and start to warm up, then everybody kind of gets going and starts to engage in the conversation. Next, we have decision making. Move towards actionable decisions by the end of the meeting, ensuring clarity on the next step. Of course, action items. Assign clear tasks with deadlines and responsible individuals to ensure follow-up. And finally, the facilitator's role, follow-up. After the meeting, distribute the minutes, and a summary of the discussion, the decisions, and the assigned tasks. Now that you know all that it takes to have an effective meeting, you'll likely think twice about calling a meeting without prior preparation. I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation. I hope that you use these guidelines to have effective meetings, more effective meetings. I want you to take 1 to 2 of these things and implement them immediately. Share your feedback with us. You'll have your meeting mechanics PDF that'll highlight all the reasons, the purpose, the how to prepare for your meeting. Then you'll have your sample agenda that you can start to use right away. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know how your next meeting goes. Thanks.